I don't even know how to start this, honestly. I wish I didn't have to, but have you ever seen something that you wish you hadn't? Something that keeps replaying in your head no matter how hard you try to forget it? Because that's what this has become for me. A memory I can't unsee. A guilt I can't undo that I keep asking myself, did I do the right thing? Or did I just destroy my own family over something I might have misunderstood? That deep down, I know what I saw, and that's what scares me the most. Okay, so my name's Hazel. I'm 19. I still live with my parents. It's not ideal, but rent's insane right now, and I'm in college. My brother, Ethan, he's 32. Yeah, big age gap. He moved out years ago, and honestly, we were never really close. He always had this intensity about him, like everything had to go his way or not at all. But when he brought his girlfriend home for the weekend, someone my age, by the way it felt, weirdly normal. Her name's Mia. She's 21, maybe 22. We go to the same college. I've seen her around campus before, in the art building sometimes, always with paint on her hands or hair, smiling at everyone. She's that type, sweet, bright, a little shy. When I found out she was dating my brother, I'll be honest, it threw me off. He's 32. She's basically my peer, but I told myself if she's happy, if he's happy, who am I to judge? They came to stay at our house for my dad's birthday weekend. Mom was thrilled. Dad grilled half the neighborhood's worth of food. And Ethan acted like the golden child, laughing, telling stories, hugging Mom like he hadn't ghosted her for months. And Mia, she blended in so easily. She helped Mom set the table. She complimented Dad's cooking. She even talked to me about a professor we both hate. For once, it felt like maybe Ethan wasn't the distant, controlling version of himself that I remembered, but that was before the night everything changed. It was late, maybe around 10 or 11 p.m., and my parents had already gone to bed. I was in the kitchen, finishing a paper for class, headphones in, sipping cold coffee that tasted like regret. Ethan and Mia were in the living room, arguing quietly. I wasn't trying to listen, but the tone caught me. He was saying something like, "Come on, it'll be fun. You always overthink this." And she said, "I'm tired, Ethan. I don't feel like going out tonight." He laughed, but it wasn't nice. More like the kind of laugh that shuts down a conversation. Then, a few minutes later, I heard her sigh and they left. I figured, whatever, grown adults, their night out. Not my business. Hours passed. I finished my paper, scrolled TikTok, fell into that 2 a.m. brain fog. Then I heard the door open. The clock on the microwave said 1:46 a.m. Ethan was holding Mia up by her arm. She was stumbling like Falon couldn't walk straight. Her makeup was smudged. Her voice slurred when she tried to say hi to me. And Ethan, he just smiled like everything was normal. "Hey, Hazel," he said. "We're good. Just a couple drinks." A couple, but she looked gone. Her eyes weren't focusing. She kept mumbling something I couldn't catch. I asked if she was okay, and Ethan just said, "She's fine. Don't worry about it," and started guiding her downstairs to the basement, the guest room they were staying in. Something about it didn't sit right. I don't even know why. Maybe because she looked more than just drunk. Maybe because his tone felt defensive. Or maybe because I've seen that look before in people who weren't safe. Still, I told myself it wasn't my business until I heard the phone ringing. It was faint at first, then louder, over and over. When I looked, her phone was still on the kitchen counter, screen lighting up the dark room, 3 missed calls. The name said, Mommy, and I don't know, something about that made my stomach twist. Because if my mom called me 3 times at 2 a.m., I'd assume it was an emergency. So I picked it up. It started ringing again. I hesitated for like 30 seconds, debating what to do. Then I decided I'll just take it downstairs. I'll knock, hand it over, done. That decision, it changed everything. I walked down the basement stairs quietly, still half asleep, phone in hand, its screen glowing against the dark walls. I knocked once. No answer. So I said, Hey, Mia, your phone's ringing again. And then I heard it, the sound that made my blood go cold. It was muffled at first, like soft grunting noises. Then sudden silence, rustling, a whisper, and then nothing. My whole body froze. Because in that instant, I realized what those sounds could mean. And every instinct in me screamed, Don't go down there. But the phone was still ringing. And my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Forced myself to take another step down. Ethan's voice came. Next, calm, controlled, too calm. It's fine. Hazel, you can come down. When I reached the bottom, he was standing there, wrapped in a towel, looking nervous, and behind him, Mia was in the bed, half covered by a blanket, her face turned away. Her breathing was heavy, but not the kind that comes from being awake. The air smelled like alcohol and something else I didn't want to recognize. I handed him the phone. He took it quickly, said thanks, and turned away. I didn't look at her again. I just went upstairs. But that image, him standing there, her so still, the ringing phone fading behind me, it's been stuck in my head ever since. And that's when the questions started. What if I was right? What if I wasn't? What if I just walked in on something horrible? I didn't sleep that night. And by morning, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. When I woke up that morning, I honestly thought maybe I dreamed it. You know that feeling when something so heavy happens that your brain tries to protect you by pretending it didn't? That's exactly how it felt. The sunlight was coming through the blinds. My laptop was still open on the kitchen table, and for a second I thought maybe I overreacted. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they were just being a couple and I walked in at the worst possible time. But then I saw her phone. Still on the counter, still unlocked, with all those missed calls. And I remembered everything. My stomach twisted. I couldn't eat. Couldn't focus. All I kept thinking was she was so drunk. Too drunk. And he wasn't. I wanted to tell myself to stay out of it. That it wasn't my place. But every time I pictured her face, pale and still under that blanket, I felt sick. So I went to Mom. She was in the kitchen, humming while making coffee. Totally unaware that her daughter's brain was spinning like a crime scene replay. I didn't even know how to start. I just blurted, Mom, can I tell you something? It's about Ethan and Mia. She looked up, instantly worried. What happened? Did they fight? I shook my head. No, it's just last night when they got home, Mia was really drunk. Like she could barely walk. And then later, I went downstairs to bring her phone and my voice cracked. I couldn't even finish. Mom's face changed immediately. Her smile disappeared. She set down her coffee and said quietly, Hazel, what did you see? I told her everything. The way Mia could barely stand. The calls from her mom. The sounds I heard. The towel. The look on Ethan's face. When I finished, there was silence. Mom just sat there, eyes wide, not even breathing for a few seconds. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." I said, "I don't know what to do." I didn't see anything directly, but something felt wrong. She pressed her hands together like she was praying. "You did the right thing by telling me," she said softly. "Don't worry, we'll handle it." But that word handle didn't make me feel better, Dad. It made me feel like we were tiptoeing around something too big to say out loud. We didn't talk to Dad right away. Mom said she'd talk to him privately later, that I should just stay calm. But calm wasn't even in my vocabulary anymore. Every sound made me jump. Every second felt heavy. And then I heard footsteps. Ethan single quotes S. He came up from the basement alone, wearing that same casual smirk he always had. He poured himself a cup of coffee like nothing had happened. When he noticed me staring, he said, "What?" I wanted to ask him what happened last night. Was she okay? But before I could, Mom came in. "Ethan," she said quietly, "can we talk for a second?" He looked confused, but followed her to the living room. I couldn't hear everything, just bits and pieces. Mom's voice, calm but tight. She was very drunk, Ethan. His voice sharper. "So what?" "She's an adult." Then Mom again. Hazel said she was passed out, and then silence. A minute later, he came storming into my room. He didn't even knock. "Why are you telling Mom stuff you don't understand?" He snapped out. I froze. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. "I wasn't trying to accuse you," I said, shaking. What I saw didn't feel right." She couldn't even stand. He cut me off. "Hazel, stop. You have no idea what you're talking about." His voice was loud, but not yelling, more like the kind of anger that simmers right before it explodes. "You think you're helping, but you're not. You're just spreading crap about something that's none of your business." I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I just said, if I were her, I'd want someone to say something. That's when something in his eyes changed, like I'd hit a nerve. He leaned closer and whispered, "You don't know anything about me, Hazel. Don't make this worse." Then he turned and walked out. Slamming the door, I just stood there, frozen, and in that silence, all I could hear was my heart pounding. A few minutes later, I heard the basement door open again, Mia's voice soft, quiet, like she didn't want to wake anyone. They were leaving. I peeked from my window and saw them outside. She looked pale, fragile, wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. He had his arm around her, guiding her into the car. She didn't even look back. And then they drove off. I sat on my bed for what felt like hours. Mom came in eventually, her face pale. She said Dad thought I might have overstepped, that I didn't know the full story, but how could I not? I saw her. I heard it, and every part of me screamed that something wasn't right. Still, a small part of me felt guilty. What if I really did just make everything worse? That night, I couldn't stop replaying it all the phone. The towel, his voice, the look in her eyes that morning. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something else. There was something in the way. Mom had reacted, like she knew more than she was saying, and I couldn't stop wondering what else had my family been keeping from me all these years. After they left, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. Like every sound was being swallowed by something invisible. Mom kept herself busy cleaning the kitchen, folding laundry that didn't need folding. Acting like she wasn't waiting for her phone to ring, Dad stayed in his workshop all day. The door closed, the sound of a radio leaking faintly through the walls, and me. I couldn't sit still. Every corner of the house felt like it was holding its breath. That night, while Mom was making dinner, I finally asked her the question that had been burning inside me. "Mom," I said quietly, "why did Dad say I overstepped?" She froze mid-stir, then she sighed. "Your dad, he just thinks it's complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated. "Mom, I literally saw." She cut me off gently, like she didn't want to hear it again. "Hazel, please. Let's just let this calm down, okay? We don't want to make things worse." Make things worse, Dot. It felt like those words were her way of saying, don't ask questions, but I couldn't not ask, Dot, because the more they avoided it, the more obvious it became that something was being hidden. Dot. Later that night, I was in bed scrolling on my phone when a text came through. Dot. Unknown number. Just one line. "Thank you for saying something." My heart skipped. I stared at the message, reading it over and over. Could it be Mia? I replied instantly, "Is this you, Mia? Are you okay?" No response. I waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Still nothing. I checked the number on WhatsApp. No profile photo, no info. Just blank. Dot, but that one text. It said everything I needed to know. Dot. She remembered. She knew something wasn't right that night, too. That's when I knew I'd done the right thing, even if no one else believed it. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. I kept wondering what Mom wasn't telling me. Dot. It was little things. The way her voice would falter when I brought up Ethan. The way Dad would change the subject when I asked about our childhood. And then, 3 nights later, I found something. I was in the laundry room, pulling out a load Mom had forgotten, when a small box fell from the shelf. It hit the ground and burst open. Old photos scattered everywhere. I knelt down to pick them up, but then I froze because there, in one of the pictures, was Ethan, maybe 10 years old. Dot. And next to him, me. Dot. Except I didn't remember that day at all. Dot. We were sitting in front of the old house we used to live in. He had his arm around me, smiling. But something about the look in his eyes, even as a kid, felt off, possessive. Almost. Dot. I found more photos underneath. Birthdays, school events, random moments. And almost everyone, he was right next to me. Always touching my shoulder, always looking straight at the camera. Like he was guarding something. Dot. My chest tightened. I don't know why those pictures made me feel sick, but they did. When I brought them to Mom, she went pale. "Where did you find these?" she asked, her voice shaking. "In the laundry room," I said. Why didn't I remember any of this? She took a deep breath, sat down, and for a long time she didn't say anything. Then finally she said, "Hazel, there are some things we didn't tell you when you were younger." My heart started pounding. "What things?" She looked like she was deciding between 2 terrible options, telling me the truth or protecting me from it. "I can't go into details," she whispered, "but when you were little, we noticed certain behaviors in Ethan. You were too young to understand at the time. We thought we handled it. We thought he'd changed." Her voice cracked. "That's why we didn't tell you." I felt like the air had been punched out of me. "What do you mean, certain behaviors? What did he do?" She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Hazel, please. I can't. This isn't something you need to carry." But it was, because suddenly everything made sense, why Ethan and I were never close. Why Dad always went tense when his name came up. Why Mom was always so careful not to leave us alone together when I was little. I realized maybe this wasn't just about Mia. Maybe this was about something that's been buried for years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling this awful mix of fear and anger, anger that no one told me. Fear of what else I didn't know. At around 2 a.m. I heard my phone buzz, another text, same number as before. I told someone, I'm safe. I just sat there, shaking, because it was finally clear. This wasn't in my head. Something did happen that night, and I couldn't help but wonder if I hadn't gone downstairs. Would anyone have known at all? The next morning, Mom came into my room. She looked exhausted, eyes red like she hadn't slept either. She said quietly, Hazel, there's going to be some distance between you and your brother for a while. It's for the best. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I thought the worst was over when Mom said we'd have distance. But distance doesn't erase what you know. It just gives your mind more room to replay it. A week passed. Every night I'd open my phone, half hoping, half dreading another message from that number. Nothing. The silence got heavier. Each day, like the world had decided to pretend none of it ever happened. Then, one Friday morning, Mom called me into the living room. Dad was there too. Sitting stiff on the couch, jaw tight. Hazel, Mom started. Mia reached out. My heart stopped. How is she? She's safe, Mom said carefully. She's with her family now. I waited for the but, and it came. She doesn't want contact right now. She needed to talk to some people, officially. The word officially hung in the air like a storm cloud. I didn't even breathe. Did she say what happened? I asked. Mom just looked at Dad. He nodded slightly, the kind of nod that says we have to do this. Dad spoke. Your brother's been asked to cooperate with an investigation. It felt like the ground tilted under me. An investigation. Not just a fight, not just a misunderstanding. Something real, I whispered, so I wasn't wrong. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You saw what you saw, and you told us. That was brave. Brave. It didn't feel brave. It felt sick, heavy, like I cracked open a door no one wanted open. Dad rubbed his temples. He says she's lying, that she regrets drinking, that it's all exaggerated. I could hear his voice tremble, not from doubt, but from the pain of saying it out loud. Mom whispered, sometimes people can't face who their children become. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, I sat outside on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the dark sky. The crickets were the only sound, and for the first time, I cried not for Ethan, not even for Mia, but for the version of my family that didn't exist anymore. We'd always been messy, but now we were broken. 2 days later, it got worse. Ethan showed up. Mom wasn't home. Dad was in town. It was just me. I heard the car door slam and that familiar heavy knock. My heart started racing. Opened the door just enough to see him. He looked different, tired. Unshaven, eyes red like he hadn't slept. Hazel, he said. Voice low. Can we talk? I wanted to slam the door. Every part of me screamed don't, but I froze. I don't think you should be here, I said quietly. He took a shaky breath. I just need you to listen. I didn't do what you think I did. I looked at him, searching for something, remorse, honesty, anything. But all I saw was panic. She's saying things that aren't true, he continued. You saw her, she was fine. Ethan, I interrupted. She could barely walk. She was calling her mom. She wasn't fine. He flinched, eyes darting away. You don't understand. She was with me. I stepped back, shaking my head. Stop. Don't try to make me feel crazy. His jaw tightened. You've ruined everything, Hazel. That line hit me like a slap. Me? I whispered. You ruined it when you brought her here like that. When you made me doubt myself. For a second, I saw something flicker across his face, fear. Regret? Then it vanished. He turned and walked away, no goodbye. No apology. Just silence and the sound of his car fading down the street. I closed the door and slid to the floor. Shaking. Mom came home later and found me there. I told her what happened, and she just wrapped her arms around me and said, It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. But part of me didn't believe her, because no matter how right it was to speak up, the aftermath felt like losing everything I'd ever known. Weeks passed. Ethan stopped contacting us completely. There were lawyers, calls, endless whispers between my parents behind closed doors. I tried to focus on school, but every time I saw someone laughing with their older brother, it felt like a stab dot. And then one afternoon, an envelope came in the mail. No return address. Inside was a short handwritten note. Hazel, you don't know how much you helped me. I'm getting help now. I remember everything. Please don't blame yourself. Some people never get someone to believe them. You believed me. Me must have read it 100 times. My hands were shaking. My heart was breaking because for the first time, I knew without a doubt that I'd done the right thing, even if it cost me my brother, even if my family never went back to normal. Because sometimes the truth doesn't fix things. It just frees the people who've been trapped by silence. Months passed. Not the kind of months that slip by unnoticed, but the kind that weigh you down with every day. I still lived at home, still went to classes, still smiled at friends as if everything was normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Ethan didn't come around. He didn't call. He didn't send a single message. Mom and Dad didn't push. They just let it be. I don't know if they were protecting me or protecting him. Maybe both. Mia's note stayed in my nightstand, folded carefully. Every now and then, I would pull it out, read it, and let the words remind me why I couldn't stay silent. You believed me. That's all it took. That simple sentence reminded me that even in chaos, even in fear, there's power in standing up for someone else. Tried to piece together my feelings about Ethan, anger, confusion, guilt, sadness. I realized the most complicated part wasn't just what he did or didn't do, but how deeply family can hold secrets, and how those secrets shape who we are. I learned a lot about myself through this. I learned that silence can be deadly. Not always in the literal sense, but emotionally, psychologically. Holding back when your gut screams at you is like letting a storm build inside your chest until it bursts in ways you can't control. I also learned that courage doesn't feel like fireworks or heroic speeches. Courage feels like a tight knot in your stomach that won't let you rest until you act. It feels like fear wrapped around determination, trembling in the middle of the night as you make a choice you wish you didn't have to make. Family? Well, family is complicated. I'll always love my parents, but I can't pretend that our past doesn't exist. That doesn't mean resentment. It means understanding that people make decisions they think are best. Even when it hurts others, I've kept my distance from Ethan. I've allowed myself to grieve the version of him I thought I knew, the brother I never really had, and the family that I imagined we could be. And yet, even with all of that, I feel lighter than I did before I spoke up. Because sometimes saying something is the only way to keep your soul from breaking under the weight of silence. I don't know what the future holds for Ethan, or for Mia, or even for myself. But I do know this. If you ever find yourself in a situation where your gut tells you something is wrong, and the world seems to tell you to stay quiet, listen to your gut, because in the end, speaking up doesn't just protect others. It protects a part of you too, the part that knows what's right. Even when it's terrifying. I don't know if I'll ever forgive my brother, and I'm not sure he's capable of forgiving me either. But I can forgive myself for doing what I believed was necessary, and that's all anyone can ever ask of themselves, isn't it? Sometimes doing the right thing feels impossible. Sometimes it costs you everything. But if you survive it, you learn something no one can ever take away. The truth matters. Your conscience matters. And even in the darkest moments, one voice can make a difference. So I leave you with this. If you were in my situation, what would you do? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or speak up and risk everything? Think about it, because the answer tells you more about yourself than any story ever could, even months later. I could still feel it, the heaviness that came with that night. It wasn't something you could put away neatly, like a textbook or a folded shirt. It lingered in the corners of the house, in the way the shadows bent across the walls. In the empty spaces where laughter used to be, I try to focus on school, on my friends, on normal life, but every little sound made my mind race. The creak of a floorboard, the hum of the refrigerator, the way the wind brushed against the window. Every little thing could trigger the memory. Sometimes I'd catch myself replaying the moment I saw Ethan and Mia in the basement. I'd shut my eyes, see the towel, the blanket, the way she'd been slumped, and my stomach would twist. Then the phone, those 3 missed calls from her mom. I would hold my chest and whisper to myself, "You did the right thing." But saying it didn't always make me feel better. It was like trying to heal a cut that never fully closes. Mom tried to help. She encouraged me to talk about it, to let my feelings out. Dad tried to, in his own way, quiet, stiff, almost distant. I think he was processing things in the only way he knew how. But the tension in the house was still thick, like smoke that never quite leaves a room. I learned something important. Some truths don't come with closure. You act. You speak. You do what you can. And then you wait. You wait for consequences. You wait for understanding. You wait for someone else to decide how the world should move forward. School became my escape. Being around friends who didn't know any of this helped me remember who I was before everything broke. But even there, I felt different, more cautious, more aware. People I thought I knew, friends, classmates, they suddenly seemed fragile, like walking on the edge of a cliff you couldn't see. And the hardest part? Trust. I realized how much trust matters and how easy it is to lose. I couldn't look at Ethan the same way. I couldn't just accept his side without questioning every word. And more importantly, I couldn't let silence become my shield anymore. Writing about it helped. I started journaling every night, pouring out the memories, the what-ifs, the fear, the guilt. I wrote letters to Mia, even though I didn't send them, just words on paper, giving her back the voice she didn't have that night. Sometimes I cried while writing. Sometimes I screamed. And sometimes, late at night, I just sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, letting the weight of it all press me flat. But slowly, little by little, I began to breathe again. I learned that healing isn't about forgetting, Dot. It's about remembering and still being able to move forward, Dot. It's about taking control of what you can control: your conscience, your actions, your heart. And I realized something else. Bravery doesn't always look heroic, Dot. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's standing up when everyone else would stay silent, Dot. It's telling the truth. Even when the people you love the most might get hurt. I also learned the value of empathy, not just for Mia, not just for myself, but for everyone caught in situations bigger than they can handle. People aren't perfect. People make mistakes. People hurt and get hurt, sometimes without realizing it. I still feel uneasy sometimes, especially when I think about Ethan. I don't know what's going through his mind or how he's processing things. I only know that I can't let him or anyone else dictate my morality. I can't shrink myself to protect someone else's pride or ego. And even though my relationship with him is fractured, I've realized something crucial. Sometimes love is not enough to keep people close. Sometimes boundaries are the only thing that saves you, Dot, so I've started setting them. Small things at first, keeping my distance, not letting guilt manipulate me, not letting fear silence my voice, Dot. It's hard. Every day is a choice, but I choose to live without fear of speaking the truth. I choose to act according to what I know is right, not what feels comfortable. Some nights, I still sit on my porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. The world feels quiet, but in a peaceful way, not in that heavy, suffocating way it used to, Dot. And every time I think about Mia, I hope she's okay. I hope she's learning to trust again. I hope she knows that someone believed her. And every time I think about Ethan, I remind myself, I can't fix him. I can't make him see what's right or wrong. I can only be Hazel. I can only stand by my values, Dot. And for the first time, that feels like enough, even after months have passed. The house never quite felt like home again. Every corner held memories of that night. Though no one spoke of them directly, the air felt heavy with things left unsaid, like smoke curling invisibly in the walls. I noticed little things, the way Dad would linger in the doorway before entering a room, like he was measuring whether it was safe, the way Mom's eyes would flick to the stairs when she heard a knock at the door, even the creak of a floorboard downstairs made my pulse spike, Dot. It was subtle, almost invisible, but the tension was everywhere. Dot. School became my sanctuary. I immersed myself in projects, assignments, friends, and late-night coffee runs. I found solace in the mundane, the predictable rhythm of deadlines and campus walks. But even there, my mind was never quiet. Every laugh, every casual glance between people felt loaded with questions I didn't dare ask. Dot. One afternoon, I met with a friend, someone I trusted without hesitation. I didn't tell them the full story. I couldn't, but I told them enough about being trapped by silence, about watching someone close do something that made me uneasy. The relief in simply sharing part of it was immediate, like opening a window in a stuffy room. We talked for hours, Dot, about choices, about courage, about the kind of decisions that could change lives forever. And I realized something important: speaking up didn't just protect Mia, Dot, it changed me. I wasn't just reacting to a single moment anymore. I was shaping the person I wanted to become. Back at home, life moved forward in fits and starts. Ethan never came back. His absence was like a shadow hovering over everything we did. Mom and Dad tried to patch what they could, but they couldn't make me forget. And I didn't want to forget, I needed to remember. The real challenge came when family events were unavoidable. Birthdays, holidays, quiet dinners. Each time. I could feel the old tension pulse like an uninvited heartbeat. I'd smile. I'd laugh. But underneath, I was calculating every step, every word, every glance, because I had learned that one careless move could unravel everything. And yet, I also learned to notice small victories. A shared joke with Mom that didn't end in tension. Dad leaving the room without anger in his eyes. The way sunlight streamed through the kitchen window. And for a moment, the house felt lighter. The most surprising part? Myself. I realized I wasn't the same girl who had walked downstairs that night. Wasn't the one paralyzed by fear or guilt. I was someone stronger. Someone who could face uncertainty and still choose to do the right thing. Someone who could feel the fear and still act. Someone who could sit with the weight of truth and carry it without crumbling. But that didn't mean the past didn't haunt me. Sometimes late at night, I would imagine different scenarios. What if I hadn't gone downstairs? What if I had stayed silent? Would Mia be safe? Would I even recognize myself in the mirror the next day? I realized that life doesn't hand you clear answers. It hands you moments like these. And you have to decide how you respond. And in those moments, I made my choice over and over. I also began noticing the subtle ways people respond to silence, the way families can fracture quietly. The way love isn't always enough to heal wounds, the way courage can be lonely but necessary. I tried to share these lessons with friends, though carefully. I wanted to teach, not preach. I wanted them to see that protecting someone sometimes requires standing against people you love. I wanted them to know that guilt is natural, but it doesn't have to be permanent. And the most difficult lesson, forgiveness. I realized I couldn't forgive Ethan, not yet. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I hated him, but because some wounds take time to process. And forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else, it's a gift you give yourself someday. Maybe I could forgive him, maybe I couldn't, but I could no longer let the question control my life. Instead, I focused on what I could control, my own actions, my own conscience, my own healing, and slowly, little by little, the tension in the house started to lift, not entirely, not completely, but enough that I could breathe. Again, I've started to smile without guilt. I've started to sleep through the night without imagining what might have happened. I've started to feel like myself again, cautious, yes, but alive. But even now, I know the shadows are still there. I know the past isn't fully behind me, and I know that some questions will never have answers, yet. Despite everything, I feel a strange kind of hope. Because even in the darkest, most uncertain moments, I learned one undeniable truth. Speaking up can save someone else's life and your own sanity. Believing your instincts, even when everyone else tells you to stay quiet, is a kind of bravery few people understand, and the weight of doing what's right, though heavy, can become a source of strength you never imagined. I never imagined that one night could change everything. One ordinary evening. A small decision to walk downstairs, to hand over a phone, to speak up altered the path of my family, my relationships, and my own understanding of myself. Even now, I think about Maya. I don't know what she feels every day. I don't know if she's truly healed or still haunted by memories of that night, but I do know this. She was believed. And believing someone, really believing them, can change a life in ways you can't measure. Sometimes I catch myself replaying the events over and over, the hallway light reflecting off the floor, the sound of her stumbling, the phone ringing, and I realize it wasn't just an isolated moment, Dot. It was a crossroads between silence and action, between fear and courage, between doing nothing and doing what felt right. I've started noticing the small ways that choices ripple outward, a word of support to a friend in pain, a phone call when someone seems alone, even a single act of honesty. When it could be easier to lie, Dot, I see now how these tiny decisions accumulate, shaping lives, relationships, and futures. Family, I've learned, is never simple. Love doesn't erase wrongdoing. Trust can be broken in an instant and rebuilt only slowly, carefully, deliberately. And yet, even in the cracks, there can be moments of light. I've tried to forgive my parents for keeping some things from me. Vid tried to forgive Ethan not for what he did, but because holding anger forever would have chained me to the past. I've learned that forgiveness isn't necessarily about absolving someone else. It's about freeing yourself, Dot, at the same time. I've realized that courage and morality aren't always rewarded. Sometimes doing the right thing feels isolating, lonely, and terrifying. Sometimes the people you love most don't understand, or worse, they blame you for intervening. I also learned something incredible. There's power in your voice. Even one voice, even one act of courage can protect someone who cannot protect themselves. Even one small stand against wrongdoing can ripple outward in ways you may never fully see. I've started to live differently. I set boundaries where before I allowed fear and loyalty to dominate. I speak up when it matters, even when it's uncomfortable. I listen when someone needs to be heard, and I let my conscience guide me, not guilt or fear. And I've discovered another truth. Healing isn't linear. Some nights, I still wake up thinking about that hallway, that phone, that sense of unease. Some days, I feel regret, anxiety, even lingering guilt. But over time, I've learned that those feelings are not signs of weakness, they're signs of growth. Life doesn't always give closure. It doesn't always hand you tidy resolutions or neat endings, but it gives you choices. And those choices define who you become. Sometimes I imagine my younger self, the 19-year-old who froze in the kitchen, unsure if she should act, and I tell her softly, "You did the right thing. You were brave, even when it hurt. You are not responsible for what others do, only for what you choose." And then I remember the note Mia sent me. "You believed me." Those 4 words echo in my mind, louder than anything else, because in that moment, I understood something I couldn't have learned any other way. Belief is more powerful than fear. Compassion is stronger than silence. And courage, real courage, doesn't look heroic. It looks like a quiet, trembling voice saying, "I will not stay silent." And that's the moral of my story. Even when it's hard, even when it costs you, even when the people you love don't understand. Do not stay silent. Life didn't suddenly return to normal. It never does after something like that, but it shifted slowly, steadily. in ways that made me notice both the fragility and strength of people around me. At home, the silence softened. Mom laughed more openly, though there were still pauses where the weight of unsaid truths hung between us. Dad was quieter, but less tense, like he'd stopped holding his breath all the time, and I started to notice that I could exist in this house without fear, without the constant edge of anxiety gnawing at my chest. I began to spend more time with friends, more time outside the walls of our small family drama. I didn't share the full story with anyone. It wasn't theirs to hear, but I learned how to trust again in small ways. A friend calling just to check on me, a late night walk where the conversation flowed without judgment. These were small victories, but victories nonetheless. And in that space, I started reflecting more on myself. I realized courage isn't a single event, it's a habit. It's choosing every day to act according to your values, even when it's inconvenient, scary, or lonely. It's looking at someone in need and deciding, I will be that person who stands for them, even if it costs me something. I also learned patience, not the kind you read about in books. No, this was something deeper. The patience to wait for answers, the patience to let healing take its time, the patience to accept that some wounds may never fully close. And that's okay. There were still moments that shook me. A sudden reminder of Ethan, his face in a memory. A name mentioned in passing made my stomach twist. Sometimes I would question myself. Did I do enough? Did I intervene properly? Was there more I should have done? But those doubts faded a little each day because I could see the tangible outcome. Mia was safe. She was taking control of her life. She was being heard, and that was enough to remind me why I acted. Even when it was terrifying, I also realized that families carry secrets, not because they want to harm, but because they think it's protective. Parents can make choices that are flawed. Children can be hurt in ways that aren't fully visible. Understanding that didn't erase my anger or fear, but it helped me navigate life with more empathy and less blind resentment. Began noticing the subtle ways people grow from trauma. A friend who lost someone to illness learns the fragility of life. A sibling who betrayed trust learns the power of guilt. And someone like me, witnessing the aftermath of something that could have been so much worse, learns the strength of speaking out. I started to take risks in life I never would have before. Not reckless risks, but choices that aligned with who I wanted to be. I applied for a leadership role in a student organization. I spoke up more in class discussions, even when I felt intimidated. I asked a friend struggling quietly if they were okay. Even when it wasn't my business. The ripple effect of one night, one decision, had changed everything. I was no longer just a witness. I was an active participant in my own life, making choices with integrity and conscience. Yet, the suspense lingered. I still worried about what Ethan was doing. I still wondered if Mia would ever truly be okay. I still carried the subtle tension that came from family, secrets, and unspoken truths. But for the first time, that tension didn't feel crushing. It was a reminder, a warning. Maybe that life is fragile, that choices matter, that courage is never without cost. And I was learning to carry that weight without letting it break me. The nights are quieter now. Not silent, not peaceful in a perfect sense, but quieter than they used to be. I can walk through the house without flinching at shadows. I can hear the creak of the stairs without my heart racing. I've learned that some scars never fully disappear. And that's okay. They're proof of what I survived. Proof of the courage I summoned when it mattered most. Sometimes I think about the chain reaction that night set off. A single decision, a single act of courage, echoing through lives in ways I couldn't predict. It's humbling, terrifying, and oddly empowering. I've started to rebuild, trust in myself, not in the way that says everything is fine, but in the way that says I can handle the truth. I've started to see the world differently, not just for myself, but for everyone who might need a voice. Even if they can't speak. I think about Mia. Think about what it must have felt like to be in her place, helpless, confused, scared, and I remember the note she sent. You believe me? 4 words. Simple. Profound. Life. Altering. And I realized that believing someone truly, completely, can be the difference between darkness and light. It can change a life. It can save someone's sense of self. It can even save your own soul. I don't know if Ethan will ever understand the consequences of his actions. I don't know if he will ever change, but I do know this. I cannot let his choices define who I am. I am Hazel. I am brave. I am cautious but courageous. I am a witness, a protector, and now a storyteller. And the story doesn't end here, because life continues to throw moments at us that test our instincts, our morality, and our courage. Some will be small, some life-changing, some terrifying. But one thing is certain: if you listen to your instincts, if you act even when it's hard, if you speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable, you create ripples of impact that may change lives forever. So I ask you, whoever is listening right now, whoever finds yourself scrolling through this story, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you stay silent to protect comfort, to avoid confrontation, to keep peace? Or would you act even if it scared you, even if it risked relationships, even if it changed everything? Comment below. Share your thoughts. And remember, sometimes the hardest thing you do is also the most important, because courage isn't loud. It's quiet, trembling, subtle, and it's exactly what the world needs.